Okay, we're going to start off with our learning sponsors. All right.
Make sure everyone's given the names to Marty.
Yes. Right. I'm going to mention that yet. Marty's not in the room. Well, sort of. He's busy doing his catering. So in a moment. Okay. Yeah, but it's hard for him to be over there and then write down people's names. Oh, okay. Learning sponsors, Friend, the Year of Learning, Friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabra Baskanoch Zundel, Friends of Meliskotsky, Moshe Zelig ben Mordechai, Martin Lipman and family in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Bas Pinchas, Friends of Herb Jeremias, Friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel ben Yaakov, Friends of Gideon Lozinski, Mordechai Shlomo ben Meir, Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu ben Yosef Kohen, those who were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Esther Malkabat Meshulam Yisachar. We have a month of learning by Malki and Rabbi Dr. Yankee Honig, in memory of her father, Yosef ben Yecheska Yehuda, Marsha Federbush, in memory of her husband, Oriel Pinchas ben Rav Shimon, Gary and Marsha Schrager, in memory of his parents, Freda Bat Hendel and David ben Yosef. We have a week of learning by Marsha Federbush in memory of her mother, Chaya Elkabad Moshe Akiva, by Shelley and Oscar Moll in memory of her father, Shlomo Ruben ben Binyamin. Today being the 11th of August, we have a day of learning by Marvin and Hadassah Bienenfeld in memory of his father, Avram Moshe ben Arav Shlomo Zali, and by also Hilda Milwas, Shelley Orgelin family, in memory of their father, David ben Pesach. Also that indicating on the new, that the Shalashudis this evening is sponsored, at this tomorrow night is sponsored by the show. Okay, and in case I forget, tomorrow there are 2 days of learning. Zahava Bam in memory of her father-in-law Reuben ben Moshe, and Jack and Sheila Prince in memory of his father Shmuel Dov ben Yaakov. Hopefully I'll get to those tomorrow at this year. Okay. All right. All right. As of next Friday, I will not be here again. So we will start working this week on fill in the blanks, so to speak. Okay. A reminder that the Marty and Mel are anxiously waiting our reservations for the Siyum on Monday at 4:00 at Century Grill. Okay. Marty, I am informing you that both Karen and I will be there. Okay. All right. Okay. That's some nice muzzle toffs there. Okay. And it did make yesterday's bulletin, by the way. Okay. The notice about the Siyum. Says Siyum from Masechet Gittin, Monday, August 14th, 4 p.m. at Century Grill. Please contact Marty Engel, 718-360-3245 for reservations. Okay. All right. Okay, Alan, good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
I don't know if anybody else is on yet. Today's not an easy Gemara, gentlemen, so we'll struggle together.
Okay,
Right?
sounds good.
Okay.
And whatever pictures they have are very confusing.
You know, I really thought, Ruvain, that remember I used to bring in the whiteboard
Right.
and do some. I almost thought that I was going to try to get the whiteboard and do it there, but
It's too confusing.
we'll present it in such a way, hopefully, that it'll be less. And the problem, well, we'll get to it when we get. Problem was with Rashi,
Right.
and then not with Tosfot, not with Rambam. Okay, the shir I listened to in advance said, you know, there's a very easy way to be mafar. Anyway, we'll get to it. We are starting on, I want to start on the bottom of Pevav Amud Beis. Okay? Amisha Shekatavo Klau. Okay, the next to the last line. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, we're going to start there. Okay, right. Okay, Shraga Feivel asked me to review the Mishnah. Okay, again, so we're just talking about, again, the whole issue of the way a get is arranged. Okay, the Mishnah talked about the fact that two people sent an identical get. It got mixed up by a shaliach. I understood also it was one shaliach who mixed them up, that he has to give both gittin to both women. Okay, that's what we agreed on. All right, otherwise, both of them are lost. Then the Mishnah, second part of the Mishnah, talked about 5 people that wrote together on what would appear to be a single get. Okay, all right. That's what the Mishnah dealt with. All right. Chamisha shektavo klal b'toch haget. Ish ploni megaresh ploni. Ploni plonit, etc., etc. Vayedim milamata, says our Mishnah, that witnesses signed on the bottom, kulan ksherim. Those are all 5 gittin then, or all 5 divorces are valid divorces. Okay? V'nitain l'chol echad v'echad. And they must give that single document to each of the 5 women. Okay? Right? Hayakotev tofes. If they wrote a general document. Okay? Remember, the problem is v'katav la, sefer kritut, and we understood la as lishma, for that woman in particular. So you can't have what I'm going to call for the moment a boilerplate general document, okay, like you do have for a ksuba, where we have the ksuba and you just fill in the names and the other information. The entire get has to be written specifically for that woman. Okay, so, right. So that's what the tofes is. All right. If you have this written as a boilerplate, and that's the best expression I can, or generic, okay, but the boiler, right? Situation, l'kol echad v'echad, v'aidim milamata, and even with the witnesses on the bottom, et she'edim nikrin imo, the basically last document where the witnesses are just above the signature of the witnesses, that get is acceptable, but not the previous, let's say, 4 above. Okay, all right. Then we got into the Gemara. Who's the Tana? All right, can't be Rabbi Eliezer, right? Because he says Edi Masare Masira Karte, right? I'm doing all this as part of review and helping us, all right? Abai, however, comes back. You could say it's Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Because he may be Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, he needs the writing lishma? Does he really need the giving lishma? Okay, since he says Edi Misarte Karte, why? Right? So what happens? Now, Chamisha Shiktavo Kla. Back into this particular section of the Mishnah, right? What happens? Okay. Hechi Dami Kla. What do we mean by it's written, I'm going to say in general, okay? Inclusive of all these 5, I'm going to say couples, exactly, Ruby. All right? Hechi Dami Tofis. What do we mean by generic or boilerplate text? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Zman echad lekulan, that they're all from the same occasion, date, specific date. Zehu klal, according to Rabbi, all right, Rabbi Yochanan, the fact that you have a single date on the document implies all of them occurred on the same day, right? Remember, I told you I once sat in a Beis Din where we had 5 divorces in a single afternoon. Okay, all right. Zman lekol echad ve'echad. If it was a separate time, separate date for each of those couples, right? Zehu tofes. That would make it more like a generic or boilerplate situation. But Reish Lakish Amar, and what does Reish Lakish say now as we go to today's daf Pei Zayin? Afilu zman echad lekulan nami have tofes. Okay, that Reish Lakish is saying even if there is a single date on for all 5 couples, he considers that simply a generic boilerplate text, and it's not going to be valid for, okay? Ela hechidami klal. So how does Reish Lakish understand that they're done in coordination? Okay, or okay. What happens? Dichtav eino, all right, dichtav anu, that it says we, ploni uploni, okay, I, Joe Schmo, Meshi Pipik, Chaim Yanko, etc. Okay, in other words, there is what I'm going to call an overall statement first of all the names, and then afterwards Reish Lakish is going to tell us then there's the specific couples. Okay, so Reish Lakish is telling Elahechidem Tichtav anu ploni uploni girashnu nishotenu ploni uploni. So he says we have to have call it an introductory statement or a general statement first, listing all of them, and then specify X to Y, Y to Z, etc.
All 5 are put in the same get?
Okay, yes. But you have a introductory general statement listing all of them, and then in addition,
So
Reish
like
Lakish.
5 separate getting written in one get?
In a sense,
I mean, if you say that you have 5 separate tofuses, but
right?
Yeah.
Okay, but Reish Lakish says I need an overall introductory general statement listing them all, and then in addition,
each one separate.
each one separate. Okay,
When you say separate, just separate in the text. I mean, it just spells it out separately.
no, then
it's
you
all
have
written in the same document.
all right. Then
They're
you
all in
have
the same document.
all in the same document, right? Now he's challenged, or this is challenged, this view. Matkifla Rabbi Abba, the Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, so there's a challenge to Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar, who said, Zman echad lekulan zehu klal. So Rabbi Abba is challenging Rabbi Yochanan's view that the criteria to make it a single get for all of them is based on the date. Okay? Lichush Dilma kichatmu sahade abatra. Okay, who techatime? That perhaps we should be suspicious, lest that the witnesses signed. They only signed it on the 5th one, let's say, the last name, last couple.
That their signatures below the text.
Right, because their signature is on the bottom of the whole list, of the whole text, really. Okay, that's where they sign. Milo Tanya, for haven't we been taught elsewhere in a Braita, Edim Chatumim al She'elat Shalom Baget Pasul, that if the witnesses sign on the concluding, I'm going to say paragraph or a closing greeting of the get, which basically in essence says, that we hope this one is okay, we hope this one is okay, so on and so forth. Okay, if that's where it is, then that get is invalid. Chayshinen Shema al She'elat Shalom Chatmu. Why? Because we suspect maybe their signature only reflects this last paragraph and not the actual, what I'll call, separation document of the get. Lav itmar Allah. But what didn't we say about this as follows? Amar Rabbi Abahu l'didi mefar shali minei de Rabbi Yochanan. That Rabbi Abahu spoke to me personally and said it was explained to him directly from Rabbi Yochanan. Sha'alo, okay? If it says in that beginning of that last paragraph about shalom, if it only says the word shalom, pasul, that's going to render the get invalid. If it says vishalu, in other words, there you have what we call vav hachibur in Hebrew, the vav that connects what came before to what comes now. It shows that this is simply an additional part of the document. Okay? And so they're not signing simply on the closing greeting, but they're signing on the entire document, kasher. Then it's valid. Okay? Hachanami, here too. The kativ be ploni uploni uploni. Here too, since we say that it's written couple A, couple B, couple C, etc., all the names, right? That shows that it's for all of them because it says so and 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 so. Okay? V'tu, and furthermore, the Rabbi Yochanan de Amar Zman L'Kol Echad, that when Rabbi Yochanan says that a single time date works for all of them, Zehu Tofes. All right, we might say that that would be a generic text, a boilerplate text. Mai iria mishum tofes. So what do we mean then when we say a general text, a boilerplate text? V'tepuk le dahavele nichtav biyom v'nichtam balayla. Maybe we're talking about a situation where there's a gap between when it's written and when it's signed. Okay. Amarle mar kashisha berei de Rav Chisda Rav Ashi. And thus what happens that Mar Kashisha says, the son of Rav Chisda says to Rav Ashi, Hachi amrinan mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan. No, this is what we say and when we understand Rabbi Yochanan's position, okay, of one time, one's man. The kativ baho bechad b'shaba, okay, right? That it was written in them, right? Bechad b'shaba, okay, right? That it was written to them, right? One, how do I want to translate it? That it was all written on the first day of the week. Let's put it that way. All right, on the first day of the week. So in other words, that is indicates in each case, on the first day of the week, A divorced B. On the first day of the week, C divorced D. On the first day of the week, D divorced E.
Oh, in other words, it's written several times.
Exactly. Okay, so that gives us the proof, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that it was all done the same time. And that therefore, when the witnesses sign, they're signing for all of them. Okay. Okay. Now,
When they sign, when the witness sign, are the people in front of them the ones who are getting divorced?
good question. Okay. In the experience that I had when the get was written, the witness,
We have a problem. We have five sets here.
right?
So who's who? Who does how does he match it up?
And they would have, they should know that, because how they're gonna give it, somebody's gonna give them the get.
Okay, so my personal experience, I once sat where there was a single get being written. Okay, the husband gave the direction. Okay, the husband was in the room, the wife was in the room. I was there as a support person for the woman, observer. Okay, I mean, I knew who was in charge because I had arranged getting through him previously without having to go to the place, but now I was asked to come to the location. Okay. So everybody was there in the room. Okay. All right. So I'm just telling you, okay, the rabbi in charge, the sofer, the husband, the wife, the support people for each of them, and the two witnesses. Okay. Gives him the direction, he gets questioned back and forth. Okay, finally, that's okay. The sofer sits there and writes and writes and writes and writes. Usually takes approximately at least a good half hour to write the get. Okay, all right. Then, okay, they look it over. Okay, sign, delivered, etc., etc. Okay, so the whole enterprise, so to speak, took a solid hour just for that, maybe even a little longer. Okay,
But the couple that starts off with, that the husband and the business say, yomi, right, have to get written and he sends to get.
well, you could have all sorts of situations. Actually, that the easiest, okay, I mean, the easier purview would be to have it written elsewhere. The shaliach comes in front of the Beis Din, and the wife is there, or a representative of the wife is there. Okay, so
How do you catch up because of law say Christus for the son be your dog?
okay, because she can. Question is, she can have a shaliach if she's not comfortable being present in front of the Beis Din to receive the get. She can establish a shaliach. Okay.
But what we're talking now about, I get with 5.
All right. So
what if you
now,
would hand it to each one separately?
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes,
He
so
gives
take
it
it
to
back.
her and takes it back.
right.
It's
Hands it
right.
to her, takes it back,
And then they would give her a receipt. That she
and they give her a
received.
receipt. Right. Okay. All right.
Mind boggling, but
Okay.
Save you some
Okay.
money on the get.
All right.
Not done.
Well, there's more to it than just that, right? Okay, so what happens? Okay, okay, we pick up. Amarle Ravina the Ravashi. Okay, so now we're still going to have a question about Reish Lakish's view, right? We just at least explained Rabbi Yochanan's position. That's at least understandable to us. Okay, so what happens? Right? Da'amar zman echad lekulan nami tofes having. What about that? That the Reish Lakish felt even with a single date on it, okay, that is only a boilerplate and therefore not acceptable. All right, what happens there? Okay, behechi dami klal. If that's the case, how then can we say that they're being divorced in general, in cooperation? Okay, dichtiv behachi. Why? Because it's written as following. In other words, again, coming back to an introductory statement, including them all, and then listing each one individually. Okay, what does he say? Anu ploni uploni, anu ploni viploni, gerashnu nishotenu ploni uploni. Okay, so again, it has to have the general statement and the vav hachibur, the conjunctive vav. Nimtzeu shtei nashim mitgarshot beget echad. In that example, you can see that Reish Lakish would say that so long as you have the general statement and then spell it out with a conjunctive situation, it is a valid get for both women.
But when it says what Gerashnu, and the Shosenu, it doesn't specify who's who.
Oh, wait. No, he's saying that's my opening introductory statement. Then after that,
Oh,
then you're going to say Moshe Pipik divorces Chaya Sarah. Okay, and then he says, going to say Yaakov Yitzchak divorces Rivka
so it
Rav.
explains it later on. Okay.
Right. Okay, that would be Reish Lakish's view. Okay, so what happens? Vahatorah Amra. So here's exactly the question, right, that we just raised. But the Torah says, Vikatav la, that it has to be written lishma, for her, right? Velo la lechaverta, and not for her and her neighbor or the other woman. Okay, what happens? Says the Gemara, Dahadar katav ploni garash ploni, that afterwards, in addition to this general statement, they also write furthermore that so and so divorces so and so. Vih ploni gerash ploni. Okay, so then you have the explicit, specific names of each of the couples, right? So what happens? Amarle Ravina Rav Ashi. He answered him as follows: Umayishna, how is this any different? Mehad Tanya, from the Braita that teaches Hakotev Kol Mechasav L'Shnei Avadav, one who writes all of his proper possessions, properties, right, to his two servants, Kanu Umeshachrarin Ze'etze, they acquire, and each one frees the other. Okay, which tells us you could have one document written for multiple people. So if it works there, why can't it work in regards to a get as well? That's the point of this presentation. V'lav okimna b'shnei shtarot. But don't we say that we have to establish this with two separate documents? Okay, ask the question. Tanya kivate de Rabbi Yochanan, Tanya kivate de Reish Lakish. We have a Braita that supports the view of Rabbi Yochanan. We have a Braita that supports the view of Reish Lakish. Okay, so how can a single document then work for both women? That's still our question. Okay, going on. Tanya kavate de Rabbi Yochanan. We have a Braita that teaches according to Rabbi Yochanan, namely our Braita. Chamisha shektavu b'toch get, 5 that are names, 5 sets of names, I'll put it that way, that are written inside the get. Ish ploni megaresh plonit, so-and-so divorces so-and-so. Vi ploni plonit, and so-and-so to so-and-so. Upvi ploni uploni, okay, and so-and-so to so-and-so. You list all 5 names, right? Uzvizman echad lekulan, and we have the same date for all of them. Va'edim milamata, and the witnesses sign at the bottom. Kulan ksherim, they're all considered valid, right? Right? Vatinaten lekol echad ve'echad, and you give that document to each of the 5 women. Okay, Zman lekol echad ve'echad, that the time same.
If there was a separate time.
Right, I'm sorry, right. Zman lekol echad ve'echad, if the time designated is for each individually. Va'edim milamata, and the witnesses are signing below. Et sha'edim nikraim imo kasher. Only that text, that section where the witnesses' signatures are directly below, that get is going to be valid. The other above will not be, right? Okay. Now, Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera Omer, what does he say? Im yesh revach b'neihem pasul. If there's a gap between them. Okay, then it is invalid. Right? V'im lav, and if not, kasher. She'ein zman mafsikan. Right? Because the writing of the time, okay, for in each case is not considered a hefsek, a break. Ted.
Is this hypothetical, or is someone really, it's not someone, would it be a situation?
It could be.
Five people
It
decide
could be.
one to write
It
They're giving you an extreme.
okay. It may be an extreme case, but it doesn't have to be hypothetical. Let's assume that that it's a question of distance. All right. Somebody is sending a get from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, and okay, so instead of okay, so they would be, so it could be that they would go to the local sofer, okay, and he's going to say, oh, all right, we know that so and so is traveling by ship next week from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, we can use him as a shliach to bring a get to women in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, the word has gone out. So 2 or 3 or 4 husbands who've decided now to divorce their wives, they come to the Beis Din in the Pampadita, Nahardea, whatever. Okay, they have the sofer write. He writes a single document. Okay,
which is the general stuff.
all right, as described. They give the single document because it's a lot easier for a shaliach to carry one document than to carry 4, right? He's more apt to lose one in that case. Okay. Okay. All right. So what happens? So that's the case. That would be the scenario that I might suggest. All right. Let's go on. All right. So what happens? We said im yesh revach b'neihem pasul v'im lav she'ein zman mafsika. Okay, so that was the whole Braita that supports Rabbi Yochanan. Now we go to the Braita that's going to support, hopefully, Reish Lakish. Tanya Kavate de Reish Lakish, and a Braita supports Reish Lakish. Chamisha shektavo klal b'toch get. Again, 5 right, okay, in a single document. Anu ploni viploni, gerashnu nishotenu ploni to viploni. Okay, so here again, you have your opening general statement. Abraham so-and-so divorces his wife, Sarah Rivka.
Avram, Shmuel, so and so.
So right.
And then
Moshe Chaim divorces his wife, Edel Buttle. Okay, and then so on and so forth. Okay, that's the point. All right, so having said that, Ploni Gerash Ploni. Okay, Ploni Gerash Ploni. All right, so it's got a list, a general statement listing all of them. Uvizman echad lekulan, and one time set for all of them. Va'edim milamata kulan ksherim, and the witnesses sign at the bottom, they're all valid. Vatinatein lechol echad v'echad, and you must give it to each one of them. Zman lechol echad v'echad, again, if the date on each one is separate, v'revach lechol echad v'echad, and there's a gap between each of the documents, va'edim milamata, and the witnesses sign on the bottom, says this Braita, et sha'edim nikra'inimo, the one that the witnesses' names are read along with it, kasher, that one would become kasher, the others not. Now, Rabbi Meir Omer, says Rabbi Meir, afal pi she'en revach beinehem pasul, even though there is no gap between each of them, it's invalid. Why? Shehazman mafsikan, because he would say all right, that if they have a different date for each one, then the
That separates.
separates each of the documents. V'reish Lakish, my area zman lekol echad ve'echad. So if that's the case, what does Reish Lakish do with the situation when there's a different date on each one? Ha'amar zman echad lekulan. But didn't he say that it has to be a single date for each, for all of them? Nami tofes have. That otherwise then it would also be a boilerplate generic text. Hani mili hechedelo irvinhu meikara. This is a situation where they did not get mixed up earlier. Aval here, the irvinhu, okay, that here where they got mixed up, maikra, okay, meikara, I'm sorry, meikara, when they got mixed up initially, ipileg lahozman, if there is a separation of time, and yes, ilo, lo, and if not, not. If there's separation of dates, then there's clearly they're not all together, and that then Reish Lakish would hold, okay, that it would not be valid. Okay, if they are together, all right, no separation of dates, it's acceptable. All right, our new Mishnah. If you think this one was complicated, this one is worse. Okay, honest to goodness.
I find this one that we just said.
Mind-boggling. Right, okay,
Plus, I'll make a statement.
yeah,
One is gonna divorce two, and if he divorces her, two is gonna get divorced, three is gonna get a divorce from four. Now one and four get together. How do you solve that problem? In other words, you don't know how it could work. You following my trend of
I
thought?
follow your trend of thought, and I'm reminded Asur Ba'al, Asur Bo'em. Okay,
Okay.
okay, that's the halacha. Okay. Do people always follow the halacha?
Yes, in my eyes, yes. In my ears.
Okay, okay. All right, now to introduce this Mishnah, I want to tell you at the outset, okay, at least the shiur that I listened to for preparation said, it's very clear. I'm not going into the Tosafot, but Tosafot says it's very clear that my grandfather Rashi had a different girsa than I have. And he had to explain it according to his girsa. Yes. On the other hand, okay, Rambam had the same girsa as Tosafot. And so Tosafot and Rambam and others all have a very simple, straightforward shot to explain this particular Mishnah and Gemara. Okay? Who's the complicated guy? Rashi. Okay? And the reason that that Rashi is complicated, and I'm going to just simply suggest this before we jump in, is because the language of the Mishnah, okay, is such that it has two issues. Issue number one is that fact that some witnesses are signing in Hebrew and some witnesses are signing in Greek. But what do they mean by Greek? It could be either Greek language, they're Jews, but they're signing in Greek, or they're signing from left to right instead of the way Hebrew is written, right to left.
That's where they get the expression, it's all Greek to me.
Okay, exactly. Okay, now, okay, all right, so let's take an example. If I'm writing in Hebrew, okay, I'm writing Simcha ben what?
Develop.
Right? No, his Hebrew name.
Chaim.
Simcha ben Chaim HaKohen. Okay? Aid. Actually, he doesn't have to write aid
He
there.
does.
No. You look in the Gemara again, okay? He usually does, but theoretically, the Gemara said if he puts his whole name, then he doesn't have to write aid.
Correct.
Okay? I agree with you. Halacha is that he has to put aid next to it.
Everybody does.
That's the minhag. That's the practice.
Everybody does. Right.
Okay? But according to the Gemara, which we're going to get to, if at some point he just puts it, okay. But what happens if he's writing it from, as in English or Greek, from left to right? Okay. He would write Simcha ben Chaim. Okay. So if I see that, I don't know whether the name is Chaim ben Simcha or Simcha ben Chaim.
Probably the word ben would be backwards.
Okay. If I read it from Hebrew, so this is part of the whole problem of trying to understand this particular Mishnah in Gemara. Okay. Right. So Rashi understood it one way. Okay. Plus, there's another complication that people didn't write the name all on the same line. Okay. So if somebody signs it Simcha and then doesn't fill the rest of the line, but in the next line says Ben Chaim, okay, but he could have put Simcha Aid, Ben Chaim Aid. You don't know if that's one person or if that's two separate people. Okay, you follow me? Okay, because number one, it's written on a separate line. And number two, it could be Simcha Aid. So all he did was sign with his first name because everybody knows him as Simcha.
Here the problem is because the Mishnah is talking about two getting written.
We're gonna,
on
yeah,
one
I'm gonna
page.
get to that.
So that
Right.
which,
Okay, we're gonna get to that in a second. So why is that then more complicated? You have two Gittin written side by side. Parallel texts. Okay, so when the witness signs, you don't know, in addition, if he's signing
half under this one, half under
exactly,
whatever it is, two
if
people or
he's
one
signing the one on the right or he's signing the one on the left. Okay, so even if he writes Simcha ben Chaim Aid,
but it's both under, goes under both.
and it's under both texts,
We don't know.
we're not sure. We don't know if Simcha was the one who signed who was signing for the one on the right side, and Ben Chaim is the one on the left side. Okay. All right. So this is why there's a multiple number of issues with this particular. Okay. All right. Let's go and we'll do what we can today. Matnitin. Shnei gitin shektavan ze b'tzad ze. Two documents of divorce written in parallel, one next to each other. Ushnayim edim ivrim, okay? And two witnesses who are Jewish, I'm going to say, sign in Hebrew, ba'im mitachat zeh letachat zeh, are signing underneath this one and this one, okay? In other words, their names go underneath both of them, all right? Ushnayim edim yavanim ba'im mitachat zeh letachat zeh. And two witnesses who are Jewish, but write in Greek. In other words, in the either in Greek itself, or they write in the format of how Greek is written, namely left to right, as opposed to Hebrew, which is right to left. Okay? Under both of them, right? So what happens? Ve'ed echad ivri, ve'ed echad yevoni. Okay, or what about the fact that we have one witness who signs from right to left in Hebrew? Okay, and one witness that signs, next witness signs, okay,
The other way.
the left to right, as in Greek, right? Ba'imi tachat zeh letachat zeh, under this one and under this one. Shnehem psulim. Okay, both of these parallel gittin are invalid. Okay, so the Gemara now asks a viable question. Velit kasher hai beruvein. So let us say that if the first signature is Ruvain ben Shlomo Ruvain ben Shlomo Aid. Okay, so let's say the first one, the one on the right, it will be considered valid by the name of Ruvain. All right, Vahai ben Yaakov, that was his name, Ruvain ben Yaakov. Okay, that would be good for the one on the left, Aid. Right? Do it that way. Dahatnan, because we're taught elsewhere in a Mishnah, Ben Ish Ploni Aid. If somebody says son of so and so witness, kasher. Okay. Diktav Ruvain ben Akma. Okay. If he writes the Ruvain son of Akma, Vyakov Aid, Abatra, as if he says Ruvain ben Akama on the first one, Vyakov Aid, okay, and Yaakov Aid, Abatra on the second one, right? Velit kasher hai beruvain ben.
So he wrote the word Ben with his name.
With his name and not with his father's name. So maybe we should say, we'll make it valid, the one on the right, okay, with Ruvain ben, Velit kasher hai Yaakov Aid. And then the one on the left will say is valid with, it simply says the father's name, witness. Okay? Dahatnan, because here we're also taught in the Mishnah, Ish Ploni Aid, Kasher. If he says so-and-so, the witness, valid. Delo Katav Aid, even if he didn't write witness. V'ibayat Ema.
Even if he didn't write Ben.
Right, even if he didn't write Ben so-and-so. Right? Right? So what happens? Ibayat Ema. And if you want, I'll ask as follows. Le'olam dekatav aid. Okay, always we write the word witness afterwards. V'diyad inan bahachatima delav Yaakov hu. Okay, why? Because this way we'll know whether that signature is not Yaakov's or not. V'dilma, and we go on now. B'shema da'avu achatim. Maybe he only signed with his father's name. Okay, we're going to say that he signed Paris. Okay, witness. Okay, like that. Lo shavik inish shmei v'chatim shema da'avua. It's not appropriate. In other words, people don't usually omit his name and simply signs by the father's name. Okay, all right. So we ask another question. Vidilma simana shavya. Maybe he was making a mark, a stamp, a symbol for it. Why? Because we've learned elsewhere. Daha Rav. What about Rav? Siyer Kavara. That Rav used to sign his name by making the symbol of a fish. Rabbi Chanina Charvata, and he used to make a symbol of a palm branch. V'Rav Chista Samach, he would make simply the letter Samach. V'Rav Oshia Ayin, he would make a symbol of an eye. Okay, Rava Bar Rav Huna Tzier Makota. Okay, right, that he would make a ship's mast. Right. So the answer is Lo chatzif inish li shavai l'shema da'avu hasimana. That a person is not brazen enough to make his father's name into simply a stamp or a symbol. That's the point. Okay. So we come back now. Velit kasher hai b'shnei edim av ivrim. So let us say we'll do the following. If you've got 4 names there, 2 written in Hebrew and 2 written in Greek style, I'm going to say left to right, let's validate the one on one side with b'shnei edim Yevani, Ivrim, 2 with the Hebrew signatures, and 2 with the signatures in the Greek style. Do it that way, since they're both Jews, okay? Ditnan, as we're taught, get shiktavo ivrit ve'edav Yevani, a get written in Hebrew, but the witness is signed in Greek style, I'm going to say, Yevanit ve'edav ivrit, okay, or it was written in Greek, the Greek style, okay, and the witness's sign in Hebrew style, kasher, it's valid. V'chitema, and if you want to say, kevan demuflag b'shnei shitin lo, that because it's written in 2 different lines, 2 different rows, the names, okay, that it shouldn't be valid. Va'amar Chizkiah, but didn't Chizkiah say, Mal'ehu b'keruvin kasher, that if they fill it in with the names of relatives, that was, we saw that in regards to a get kereach, okay, one of those, get mikushar, it's valid,
As long as they're 2 kosher items.
right? Ha tani ze'iri, and what about what ze'iri taught? Shnehem ksherim, that they're both valid. Vatana didan, dilma nod delot chatim. But maybe our Tana was concerned that the names were mixed up, were out of order, right? And that's how they sign. In other words, it could be that the 2 that were signing in Greek style saw the previous names written in Hebrew, okay, Simcha ben Chaim Kohen Eid, and they saw, oh, I've got to write my first name first and my father's name second. So how would I do that in the other hand? I would write Chaim, Ben, Simcha, and then, so in other words, it would be the reverse order that we would normally think of it.
Right.
Okay, maybe that's the situation. Bekulhu echadhu dechatime. Okay, and therefore that's why he was saying, but they're all signed, okay, to a single get. All right, let's go on. Eid echad ivri ve'eid echad yevani. Okay,
Because I'm Simcha ben Chaim, my son is Chaim ben Simcha. Remember, we have 2 people.
all right, that could be the question.
That's how can they do what they get?
Okay, so one Eid echad ivri ve'eid echad yevani. One person signs in Hebrew, Hebrew style, one person signs in Greek style. Velit kash, okay? So here now we understand why Tosafot and the Rambam and the others say there's a much easier way to understand this Gemara than how Rashi understood it, because Rashi understood it if there was a blank space, one, okay, how do you read one name and then another underneath? Okay. All right, so what happens? Velit kasher hai. All right, so why don't we do the following? Fine. Hebrew, Greek, Hebrew, Greek. Understand it that way, right? Hai be'ed echad ivri, ve'ed echad yevani. V'hai be'ed echad ivri, ve'ed echad yevani. Okay, understand it that way. All right. If you have, if instead of 2 Hebrew, 2 Greek, it's Hebrew, Greek, Hebrew, Greek. All right. Understand 2 of them for one document, 2 of them for the other document. Right? Dahatnan. Why? Because we're taught Eid echad ivri, ve'eid echad yevani kasher. Okay. that if one signs in Hebrew style, one signs in Greek style, the get is still valid. Ha Tani Zeiri. But it was taught by Zeiri. Shnehem Ksherim. They're both valid. Vatana Didan, and maybe our Tana, Dilma, right? Good Lanot Hatichatim. Maybe again he thought they got mixed up in signing. Utlata Echad Vechad Echad. Okay? And what happens, okay, is that he may have thought in that case, the way they're listed, that there were 3 signatures for one document and 1 signature for the other document instead of 2 and 2. Right? Let's go now. We'll try to finish up a little bit more. Our Mishnah says as follows: Shi'er miktzat haget v'kedavo b'daf sheni. He left over part of the text of the get and wrote it on the back side, second side, all right, of a page. V'haidim milamata, and the witnesses sign on the back side. Okay, so all right. So what happens then? Kasher, it's valid. Chatmu edim berosh hadaf. If they've signed on the top of the page, okay? In other words, not at the very end of the document, even though the second part of the document's on a back page. Maybe he had a smaller piece of parchment. So he had to write part of it on one side, part of it on the other, and normally then that's where the witnesses would sign. Okay? What happens if they signed at the top of the page? Min hatzad, they signed on the side. O me'acharav, okay. All right, what happens? Or all right, not at the bottom, in other words.
Get kosher,
Okay, beget pashut.
which is they should have on the get kosher.
They should sign it
on the back of the fold.
back of
and
the
they
fold,
signed it
inside, right? Pasul, it's invalid. Okay. Hekif rosho shozeh, b'tzad rosho shozeh. Okay, what if he did, right? The following, that he, I don't want to say twisted, but he attached one end to the other. Okay, Rosh Hashanah, Va'idim be'emtza, and the witness's signature is in the middle. Shnehem psulim, they're both invalid. Sofo shozeh, b'tzad sofo shozeh, Va'idim be'emtza, again, right, 1 and 1, right, where they meet in the middle. Okay, Nikrin imo kasher. If it's read with them, the one that it's read with, the witness's name is valid. The other one not. Rosho shozeh b'tzad, v'sofo shozeh. Okay, the one is on the side and the other on the top, maybe, or on the bottom. V'hayedim be'emtza, and the witnesses are in the middle. Et shahedim nikrim b'sofo kasher. The one where the witnesses sign and it's read with them, that one is valid, the other not. Get shektavo ivrit ve'edav yavanit. Here we get back to our language style. All right, get written in Hebrew, but the witnesses sign in Greek style, yavanit ve'edav ivrit, or they written in Greek and the witnesses sign Hebrew style. Ed echad ivri ve'ed echad yavani. One witness signs Hebrew style, one witness signs Greek style, right? Or katav sofer, okay? Va'ed, or it's written by the sofer and the aid, kasher. That would be valid. Ish ploni ed, if he signs his name and puts aid, kasher. Ben ish ploni aid, right? If he says son of so and so, witness, kasher, that's valid. Ish ploni ben ish ploni, velo katav aid, kasher. Okay, if he says, as we said, Chaim, Simcha ben Chaim HaKohen, and that's all he put, without writing the word aid, it was still valid. Today, as we said, the halacha generally follows the practice. Everybody usually does aid. Okay? V'kach hayu naki hadad shebiyushalayim osim. And that is how what we want to call it, the Nikiyeh Hadat, the knowledgeable, okay, the I'm not sure of another translation. Elegant circles. What do you want me to tell you? The creme de la creme in Jerusalem. That's how they did it. Okay, Katav Chanichato. If he wrote his Chanichato, which is a nickname for his family. Okay, all right. The Chanichata, or her nickname, Kasher. Now, nickname here is considered to be a nickname for their surname. Okay, right? So let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example.
And this, usually the man's profession was became the family name to still.
All right, that could be. All right, I'm thinking of, let's say somebody's last name was Wolf. Okay, all right. So let's say people have given him the nickname Wolfie. Okay, so if it were to be signed Wolfie, okay, people would know who it is. That's what the Chanicha.
I mean, is it okay only because people know who it is?
Exactly.
So they have to know who it's signed.
They would have to recognize.
Otherwise, if it's a strange get, they would not.
They may not know,
They
right?
have to be in the same town.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Town where everybody
So
knows
we'll finish up, says the Gemara. Velichush, maybe we should suspect the following. Dilmahani, Tregiti Havu. Maybe we're going to say here that there was originally two get documents.
They're on 2 pages.
Right. Vitrame leis man de kama vedim de batra. Okay. That what happened? That he put the date on the first one, but the witnesses signed later. Right. And what happened? The Gazia Lizman de Batra, the Edim de Kama. Okay, and what did he do there? That he basically cut off the time from the second one where the witnesses had signed on the earlier one. Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Rav, to the name of Rav, Kashayesh Revech Milamata. That's only a concern where there is a gap between them. V'dilma Zman de Batra, Migaz Gazia. Okay, and maybe the date of the second one got cut off. Kida Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Rabbi, as he said, Kishahaya Revech Milamata. Okay, if there was the gap between them, Hachanami, just to roll over a tiny bit, Kishayesh Revach Milamala. So the same thing we might suppose if there's a gap at the top. Okay, so what's going to happen? Says the Gemara, Vadilma imluchi imlich, v'katav dekatav hareat milamata muteret, etc., etc. That's where we'll continue. All right, katav hareat milamata umuteret lamata. Maybe those words are separate. Vadilma et ramele, and perhaps then that could have meant he changed his mind. Kulihai lo chashinin. We don't suspect that. Rav Ashi Amar v'yid'ah bei mitachta de Megilta. Why? Because we can always tell where the document ends, okay, whether it's cut off, whether something is broken on the status of the parchment. Okay, and we'll go back. Right?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Everybody have a good Shabbos.
Have a great Shabbos. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Yeah.
job.
Shabbos, Bob.
Bye-bye.